What American soldiers were about to find at Dachau was not just another war scene. It was a place so disturbing that even battle-hardened men would never forget that day. Before this story begins, subscribe now, because we bring real historical moments that reveal courage, cruelty, justice, and the hidden emotional cost soldiers carried after war. By late April 1945, Nazi Germany was collapsing, and American troops moving through Bavaria believed they were approaching another military objective. Not a place that would change them forever. They advanced through ruined roads, abandoned vehicles, and silent villages, carrying weapons, exhaustion, and uncertainty, unaware that something far darker than combat was waiting ahead. Then they saw the train near Dachau, a long line of boxcars standing still, with open doors that immediately told them something terrible had happened there. As soldiers looked inside, their faces changed. Some covered their mouths, some froze completely, and others lowered their heads, unable to understand the scale of suffering before them. After the train, they moved deeper into the campgrounds, passing fences, guard towers, and empty yards, where silence felt heavier than gunfire. Inside Dachau, prisoners stared at the Americans with weak hope and disbelief, as if freedom was standing in front of them but still felt impossible to trust. The first moments of liberation were not loud or victorious. Soldiers helped weak prisoners, opened barriers, and watched relief mix painfully with exhaustion and shock. Then came the confrontation with captured SS guards, and the soldiers' faces showed rage, disbelief, and the unbearable weight of everything they had just witnessed. American troops stood face to face with the guards, while prisoners watched from behind them, and the air filled with grief, anger, and dangerous moral tension. Some soldiers simply stopped where they stood, emotionally shattered by the camp, unable to speak, while the horror around them pressed into their memories forever. Behind barbed wire, survivors watched in silence, their faces hollow yet intense, as if years of suffering were suddenly staring back at their former captors. For some American soldiers, this became the breaking point, where military discipline collided with human fury after seeing what had been done inside Dachau. Across the camp, confusion spread quickly. Soldiers moved through muddy yards, prisoners gathered in shock, and captured guards stood under watch as history turned chaotic. Yet even in that devastation, compassion appeared, as American soldiers knelt beside weakened prisoners, offering water, support, and a human kindness many had nearly forgotten. Walking past the barracks, soldiers saw more suffering than any battlefield had prepared them for, and their expressions hardened under the weight of becoming witnesses. The surrendered guards stood under armed watch, while liberated prisoners looked on from a distance, creating a moment filled with justice, grief, anger, and uncertainty. Slowly, prisoners began emerging from dark barracks into open air, some supported by others, carrying bodies too weak but spirits barely holding on to freedom. In the camp yard, survivors and American soldiers stood together, surrounded by exhaustion and fragile hope, as liberation finally became real but never simple. American soldiers kept searching the camp, checking barracks, guard posts, and open yards, their faces tense and drained as smoke and silence hung over Dachau. Some survivors were too weak to stand, lying beside barracks or sitting in the mud, while soldiers and medics moved carefully among them. One soldier stood alone before the fences and towers, staring across the camp in silence, carrying grief that no victory speech could ever explain. For many prisoners, freedom arrived slowly. Some looked toward the sky, some wept quietly, and others simply sat there trying to believe it was over. The captured SS guards remained under armed watch, and the soldiers guarding them carried expressions of disgust, anger, exhaustion, and a heavy sense of consequence. Later, groups of American soldiers stood together in grim silence, not celebrating victory, but trying to understand how humans could create such suffering. Then the work of mercy continued, as soldiers offered blankets, water, and quiet reassurance to survivors who had lost almost everything except the will to live. Outside the camp, American troops gathered near vehicles and spoke in low voices, realizing the world would need to know what Dachau had revealed. Dachau became more than a liberated camp. It became evidence, memory, and warning, a historic moment that forced the world to face Nazi cruelty. And as soldiers walked away through the muddy grounds, Dachau stayed with them forever. Comment what this story means to you, and subscribe for more true history.